All right. Are we live? Haha, we are live. What's going on, gentlemen? Happy Thursday. Today is June 19th, 2025. The time is 1:23 p.m. And you see the title of the video, How I Changed My Identity and Started Getting Dates. First thing I want to call out is it is an incredibly windy day here in the Bay Area. So you might hear some humming coming from outside. That's just the wind blowing into the apartment. I have all the windows closed, but it's so windy that it might the mic can potentially pick up some of that. So apologize in advance. Bear with me. Still wanted to make the live stream for you. So yeah, today I wanted to talk about this topic because one, there's a great post recently yesterday from one of the school community members who was just talking about things that he's working on right now and more or less identity shifts that he's looking to make that he thinks will improve his dating life. And also, yesterday's live stream, Mo made a comment about right now he sees himself as the nice guy getting friend zoned. And I thought that that tied perfectly into this topic of identity shifting and how that can change and improve your life. And how honestly, it seems as though guys kind of need permission to change their identity. So what are we even talking about? So the way that I understand identity is it, and by the way, I'll be glancing over as usual at my whiteboard here. What up, Mo? Mo's in the chat already. What up, baby? Love that you're always the first one to these streams. Do me a favor, like the stream for me, as always, so we can improve outreach. All right. So this stream is more or less dedicated to you. So the way that I understand identity is it is your sense of self. Okay. So it is the story that you tell yourself and others about who you are. Now, whether or not you actually deep down truly believe that story is another question. And so you can imagine guys that tend to be super insecure in certain areas of their life, oftentimes they are dealing with somewhat of an identity crisis where they want themselves and they want others to believe that they are a certain person. This is who they are. But whenever somebody challenges that position, that whenever somebody challenges their identity, they start to get very defensive. And first example that comes to mind would be guys back in high school. I was definitely one of these guys that wanted the world, wanted the school, right? In that case, back when I was in high school, I wanted the rest of the school to see me as this super cool, smooth guy that gets the girls, specifically because I was in a group of guys where that was actually the case, right? So I was as I've said previously, I was a part of the athlete friend group. I played football, and we all mingled with the basketball players and the water polo players, the soccer players, and so the jocks, right? I was in that sort of a circle back when I was in high school. And so because pretty much all of those guys that I was friends with had no trouble getting girls, and they'd have their girlfriends, and they'd throw the parties, and they'd get invited to all the parties, and I would get invited as well. Because that was the case, I also wanted to align myself with the identity of the guy that also got the girls. The main problem is that I didn't get the girls. And so that was a big identity issue for me, because whenever somebody would challenge that position, I would get super defensive. So an example I've given on previous live streams is I remember I was talking to a girl, walking to a different class, or I think it was in between classes. I took a bathroom break, she took a bathroom break, and we happened to pass by each other in the hallways. And I remember as I was chatting with her, we were talking about random shit, right? Another girl that I was acquaintances with also was walking through the hallways and came up to us. And so we it was me and two girls, and we were all talking in a little circle. Yeah. And I remember, I don't exactly remember how this topic came up, but I just remember the girl that arrived, as we were chatting about whatever we were talking about, said something along the lines of, Ephraim, I bet you don't get any girls. Ephraim, I bet you get no girls. And I remember responding in a very defensive way. So nowadays, yeah, if somebody said something like that, Ephraim, you don't get any girls, I'd be like, yep, I get none. And I would just exaggerate. I would just agree and exaggerate. Yeah, I actually, I get no girls. It's fucking depressing, dude. I'm an incel. That's how I'd react these days. Yeah, because I'm so firm in my identity right now, and we're going to discuss my current identity towards the end of the live stream. But I'm so sure of myself nowadays, and I've got loads of experiences to back that claim up, that identity up, that if somebody were to try and challenge it, I would just simply let them. I would be like, yeah, you can challenge it. It's okay, but it's not going to change all of the dates that I've been on. It's not going to change all of the success that I found through cold approach. It's not going to change anything, really, their opinion of me, right? And so that's why nowadays I can handle it differently. But back then, when I was 16 and I was in high school and the girl said that to me, I remember I went, no, what are you talking about? You're crazy. I get so many girls. Oh my God. I get so many. Yeah, I'm fucking awesome. I get all the girls, right? And I remember in that moment, I could feel kind of like a shift when looking at these two girls, and they kind of looked at each other, and they could tell that I was very insecure. They could tell that I didn't even believe what I was saying. I was just trying to assert that into the world in hopes that they would believe it, and in hopes that I could maintain this image of the guy who gets girls, even though I actually didn't. And even though I was actually really struggling, and I was crying into my pillow each night going, why do all my friends get the girls and I can't? What's wrong with me? My ugly, my too short, is this or that? So that was my reality, that I actually believed that I was a loser that couldn't get girls and wasn't good enough to get girls, but I didn't want everybody else to believe that. And so I was trying to manufacture an image and an identity and show that to the world in hopes that they'd believe it, and in hopes that I could maintain my cool points and my high school social status, whatever it was back then. Yeah. And then I was telling that story because the other girl that didn't say that, right? She could feel the insecurity, and I imagine, felt so bad for me in that moment that she kind of turned it into a joke and, like, gave me a little shoulder bump or a elbow bump and was like, "Yeah, no, I bet Ephraim does all right for himself. Yeah, no, I bet Ephraim does okay." And, like, was helping me out in that moment because she could feel that I was floundering and I was so worried about what they thought. And I was like, "No, I do get girls. No, I get the girls." And so she was helping me out and going, in the back of her head, she was probably thinking, yeah, this guy's a fucking loser. He's lying to our face right now. But she was helping me out and being nice. And so she was like, yeah, I'm sure Ephraim gets girls, right? Yeah, Ephraim, I'm sure you do all right for yourself, Ephraim. Pathetic. All right. So my question to you is, who are you anyways? Yeah. So we talk about this sense of identity and what you truly believe about yourself, and then what you try to get others to believe about yourself. And we talk about this as a concept. But my question is, who are you anyways? Who are any of us anyways? Yeah. So essentially, we are just an accumulation of experiences and stories that we've lived through during our life up until this point, that have shaped our beliefs, shaped our perspectives, and shaped essentially who we are, yeah, our identity. It's been pretty much manufactured, as has everybody's. Yeah, so it completely depends on your upbringing and how you were treated growing up. It completely depends on who you were friends with and the activities that you all did, and like, these are the things that have shaped who you are up until this point. So a lot of times I find that guys, especially the ones that are very insecure, but guys in general, people in general, right? We have this identity that we've created and we've accepted as ourselves. And so we find it very difficult to change that, especially the older we get, the further into a certain career we get. Yeah, the further along a certain path that we get, we start to accept that as us. So if you imagine, like, the rock star, the guy who just said fuck it when he was 18 and decided, I'm not going to school, I'm not gonna follow this beaten path. Instead, I'm just gonna do my best, make my music, and try to go on tour and live this crazy life, right? So that guy, you get 10 years in, and his identity is kind of the maverick, is the guy who goes against the pack, and is the guy who tries to pave a different way. Versus, you think about your standard accountant who graduated high school, picked a very safe major in finance, went to school, got his degree, and decided, I don't know what to do, so let me just get this entry level accounting job, and now he's a staff accountant at a company. Well, that person likely has a certain identity and views themselves in a certain way, and most likely, this isn't always the case, but most likely that person has more or less a squeaky clean public image because they're worried about their corporate life. Most likely that person is very entrenched in corporate politics and in that whole lifestyle and stuff. Most likely that person dresses a certain way. Most likely that person hangs out with certain people, has certain interests. Now, obviously, this is going to be completely variable person to person, but like you can start to categorize people in boxes based on the identity that they've accepted as themselves. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of accountants that are also doing just the most crazy stuff and they're on jet skis riding down snowy mountains and shit also. But you see what I'm saying? It's like we can start to like categorize people based on the path that they've chosen also oftentimes. And a lot of the times that, that what they do for work tends to tie directly into their sense of identity and who they see themselves as, right? So my question is, who are you anyways? All we are, any of us, are just an accumulation of experiences that have shaped us into who we believe ourselves to be, and therefore who we try to portray out in the real world. All right. So the next bullet point I wanted to go over is my story as it relates to identity shifting over the years. Okay. So let's start with early on. Okay. Apologize. My allergies are fucking me up today. There we go. That's my identity, is I'm a guy with allergies. All right. So we're talking about me now. Okay. So early on, I was, let's say, up until the point I was about 10, even 12. I'll say up until the point where I was about 12 years old, my identity, who I believed myself to be, was a complete loser. All right. So I would never have admitted this to you back then, but back up until the point where I was 12 years old, all I had done really in my life is, I was somewhat athletic because my parents were at work, and so they put me in this after school program where they let us play in the playground and play a bunch of sports and stuff. So I had that in under my belt. So I'm grateful for that. But whenever I wasn't at this after school program and whenever I wasn't in school, all I was doing up until the point where I was 12, 13 years old is I was playing video games. So I remember early on, I was playing computer games, Maple Story, OMG Pop. That was a big one. Yeah, these games where I could kind of pretend to be a fantasy hero, and especially Maple Story, right? I could pretend to be a hero and level up that character, and virtual reality seemed more fun than actual reality back then. I would play a bunch of Call of Duty and NBA 2K, right, where you level up your my player, and I wanted to make him the sickest looking my player with all the attributes so I could be the best in that video game. Same with Call of Duty, right? You want to back when I was playing Black Ops, the goal was to get to Prestige 15. That was like the max prestige level. So I was trying to get the most kills in the map and trying to be top of the leaderboards and get some sense of accomplishment there. And so that my identity up until the point where I was about 12 or 13 years old was a kid who had no friends, didn't hang out with any friends outside of school, right? Had my acquaintances in school that I played with on the playground, but that's as far as it went. And after school, I would just recluse into my bedroom and I would play video games until one of my parents told me I needed to go to sleep. And that was my identity. Yeah. And so then we fast forward a couple of years. I got to, let's say middle school, high school time. And I actually started getting some friends, and people actually started accepting me into certain groups. And so because I was accepted into the cool athlete group, mainly because I played sports, and so that was the logical place to be, my identity started shifting, right? So around late middle school, early high school, I'd seen myself as the loser with no friends. And then all of a sudden I started getting friends. And so my identity started to shift. No longer did I see myself as the loser with no friends. Now all of a sudden I'm like, oh no, people are actually starting to like me. Oh wow, no, people are actually starting to accept me. And so my identity started to, we could say, improve, but really it's just changed to where now I started believing, okay, no, I am worthy of having friends. No, I am worthy of getting invited to after school outings, and we would have little sports get-togethers, and sometimes we would have our own little version of our high school barbecues and parties and school dances, and I'm getting invited to these things now, right? I get to high school, I start getting invited to parties and stuff, and I thought, okay, so I'm cool. I'm a cool guy. So now all of a sudden, 3 years prior, my identity was, well, I'm this loser with no friends. And then you fast forward a couple of years and it's like, oh no, I think I'm top of the food chain now. No, I think I'm the cool guy that gets invited to the parties and plays football for the school and has the school's name on my jersey, and the people are rooting for me and the rest of the team, and I'm the guy that scores the touchdowns now, and I'm the guy that that gets invited to the parties. And then, when I was 17 and a girl asked for my jersey, or 16, I can't remember which age it was, but then all of a sudden I was the guy who is cool enough and good enough at football to get a girl to ask me to wear my jersey on Friday night. Right? That was a big identity shift there. All of a sudden I'm like, whoa, up until this point, I've had absolutely no activity with girls. Now I got a hot girl that's asking to wear my jersey. Wow, like that seems like a big deal. Yeah. And so my identity shifted there. Give me a sec. I just gotta blow my nose. One moment. Oh man, I might have to pop a Benadryl, boys. We got somebody in the comments. The new guy behind. What up, dog? Good to see you. Okay, so moving on. Now we get to later stage high school, like mid to late stage high school. And I was having a big identity crisis back then because, at first I was happy and I was content with the fact that I had this newfound coolness, right? All of a sudden people were accepting me into the cool group and inviting me out to parties, and I thought that was sick. But I noticed a change within the friend group, which is guys started coming around less, guys started or stopped hanging out quite as much because they started getting busy with girls. Yeah, they started having little play dates with girls, right? Whatever it was back then. We definitely weren't going on proper dates, but you get what I'm saying, right? They started hanging out with girls, going out to eat, right? They took them to McDonald's or Chick-fil-A or whatever, and then all of a sudden they had girlfriends. And so all of a sudden I was one of the only guys, and certainly the last guy in that what I would consider the cool friend group, to find any success with girls. And so back then the identity crisis was, oh no, yeah, maybe I'm this cool guy who gets invited to the parties where all the cute girls are around, but I don't get any action. Yeah. So back 16, 17 years old, I wasn't getting any action. And I was worried that I would kind of be pushed out of this cool group because all of them were able to find success with girls and get girlfriends and have great times. But I was the one guy in the group who could not make it happen. And so that was a big issue for me. And I was worried that, oh no, they're going to stop hanging out with me. No, they're going to think I'm lame because I don't get any girls, yada, yada, yada. And back then, I already gave you an example story, but back then I was very, very insecure. I had a very fragile ego. So if one of those guys were to crack a joke, in the group about, oh, shut up, Ephraim, you shouldn't talk. You're not getting any girls. Oh, we don't want to hear your opinion on this. You're not getting any girls. Girls don't like you. Then I would just get super defensive, and I'd be like, oh, shut up, your mom, right? Oh, shut up, this and that. And I would start, verbally attacking them back because that was my response to somebody challenging the identity that I was trying to portray, which was, no, I'm this cool guy. No, I get girls. No, I do decent. No, I do all right for myself. Look how many girls I'm Snapchatting. Look how many Snapchat streaks I have, right? And I would show them the false activity that I thought was going on, that in reality was not going anywhere romantically. And even though deep down what I actually believed about myself was, they're right. No, they're so correct. Like, I don't get girls and they do. And I'm trying to figure out why that's the case and what's wrong with me. And I was, I'm not going to ask them, right? Back then I'm 16. I'm not going to ask my other 16-year-old friends, why do you think I'm not getting girls? What is the problem with me? Friend, can you tell me what you do differently and why what I should change about my behavior? Like, I wasn't even self-aware enough to know that I could at least ask for feedback, or at the very least, like, monitor and kind of watch what they're doing and try to emulate it to see if I can make tweaks and fix that issue that I was having. But I wasn't even self-aware enough, right? I was 16 at the time. So back then I didn't even think about the concept of identity at all. I just thought, this is life. I'm growing up. I'm doing my best, right? So I don't fault myself for that, right? I was 16. I give myself grace there. But still, I just remember going through that big phase, identity crisis phase in life, where I was just like, how can I figure this out, right? Like, I want people to believe that I'm cool and I'm a player and I get the girls, but that's simply not the case. And so it was really conflicting. Okay. Now that was 16, 17. We get to like the end of me being 17. So 17 to 18. things started to pick up a bit, right? So that's around the time I had my first kiss. I lost my virginity. I had my first, what we would call girlfriend. And so things at least did start to pick up. So I'm grateful there, right? A lot of guys, they go through high school and college even and beyond not having any experiences. And so that further that further confirms that identity that they believe about themselves about, oh, I'm not good enough, oh, I don't get girls. The further it goes, now they're 23, 24, 25, still having just absolutely no luck with girls. And so we talked about this earlier in the live stream, right? The further you go down a certain path, then the easier it is to accept that identity and all of the stereotypes that come along with that identity. And also the harder it is to break free of that identity, the harder it is to change it. Yeah. So we go and we talk to an 80-year-old guy. For the most part, he's probably not going to in a position where he's trying to learn new things and change his identity and who he is and improve and stuff. That's most likely a guy who is just going to tell us stories about how the world is from his perspective, right? Tell us stories about, oh, son, you're 25, you need to do this, you should be doing that, don't do that, stay away from these kind of people, stay away from these countries, right? And they're asserting their perspective, which makes sense, but that's somebody who's a lot less likely to change their ways and their perspectives and their views because they've gone 8 decades at this point just having layers and layers of beliefs and perspectives piled on top of them that they've accepted. So it would be a lot harder, right? Versus now we drop back into guys that are around our age, right? 20s, 30s, even 40s. Well, we still have a lot more runway to go. And so we're not quite as far down along a certain path as somebody that's in their 60s and 70s. So it would be a lot easier for us to be open-minded, accept new information, and actually filter it and say, do I agree with this or do I not agree with this? Okay, so continuing on with my personal experience. So now we're talking about I was 18. I actually did get some experiences, a couple of hookups at a few parties back then, and bringing a girl to prom and ball, and okay, nice, at least I'm not the loser who doesn't get any girls, who went to prom with just his group of guy friends because none of us got the girls, right? So it's like, all right, at least I was able to break free of that to an extent. But now we get to right after high school, so post high school, literally the day after I graduated. And it's like whatever success with girls I was able to accumulate up until that point was pretty much just wiped clean because I was a nobody, right? I was just thrust into the real world. I wasn't going to college. And so I didn't have the clout that came with being the cool athlete, high school football team Ephraim guy anymore. Nobody gave a fuck, right? And so like that's the only thing that was really getting me any results with girls back then was I was seen from the third person perspective as like a somewhat cool guy who was out playing football, scoring touchdowns for the school, representing the school, right? Versus, well, as soon as that's over, nobody gives a fuck. Nobody cares that you played high school football. Like, congrats, guy. Good job, I guess, right? So especially with all of the people that were moving away from this, we graduate high school, everybody moves away to different states and goes to colleges in different regions of the country. Some people are going abroad. So now all of a sudden, it's like whatever clout, whatever cool points I thought I accumulated up until that point were wiped clean. And so now, post high school, 18, 19, 20 years old, I found myself in a very difficult position, another identity crisis, where I just didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to get a date. I didn't know. I was doing my best on Tinder and Bumble back then, where I would be tell you boys about the stories where I literally bought a tripod and set it up with a self timer so that I could press the shutter button, run in front of my phone and like pose in different environments and try to get what I thought were cool photos for my dating profile, right? And I was watching all these videos on like how to maximize your Tinder profile. What is the best opener you should send to a girl when you match, right? All this shit. That was like the only angle I could conceive because I hadn't even come across cold approach. And back then I wouldn't have even believed that it was real. I would have thought, what the fuck? These guys are faking it, right? They're paying actresses, whatever. And so I found myself in another rut because I didn't know what to do to generate leads for myself. Tinder, Bumble, these dating apps, that wasn't working because I was also presenting myself poorly on those. And I was just kind of at a loss, right? I was still heartbroken over the girl that I was dating in high school that broke my heart. Oh, she cheated on me with another guy. Oh my God. And yeah, I just didn't know what to do. So that lasted genuinely, that phase lasted up until more or less the point where I was 22. Now, when I was 22, I found a girl on a dating app that I actually really got along with and really liked. And so I was seeing her for a while. And then we come across 2023. I turned 23 years old. So I had at least gotten to myself to a point where I got like a couple of successes, we can call them, on dating apps, and at least I found a girl that I liked. Oh, sorry, I skipped over a major portion of this, which is when I was 21 years old, and I met a girl when I was working at a grocery store that was also working there, and I started seeing her, and then that went on for long enough. Yeah, sorry, bear with me with the allergies today. Um, So that went on long enough, and I had so few options that I decided to let that girl move in with me when I was 21 years old. So I met her when I was 20. We were hooking up, and I honestly thought she was okay. I wasn't like head over heels attracted to her by any means, but this was the first slice of pussy that I had gotten in months. Yeah, multiple months, 6, 8 months, however long it was. And so I was holding on to that for dear life, right? I was thinking, okay, as much as I want a hotter girl, as much as I want somebody that I'm more compatible with, I'll just settle for this because shoot, at least this is better than jerking off every night, right? At least I got a girl that I'm somewhat attracted to. And I was so scarce back then in 2021. I was living in such a scarce mentality that I decided, all right, I'm just going to let her move in with me so that I have a constant supply of sex without having to go these long 6, 8 month dry spells of trying to swipe on dating apps and nothing is working. And so my identity back then when I was 21 was was not a guy, and I'm talking about my true identity that I believed in. My identity back then was a guy that kind of settled for an average girl, right? And no disrespect to her. I imagine she'll never come across my channel, or at least I hope not. But no disrespect to her, right? Beautiful soul, still beautiful girl through and through, right? I'm sure she'll do great things in her life. But for me, that was just not my standard, or at least not what I wanted my standard to be. I wanted way hotter girls that I'm seeing these days, right? And so back then, my identity was a guy who just kind of settles for path of least resistance, who goes, well, I don't want to go through these long 6, 8 month dry spells because it's uncomfortable and it sucks, and I got to just watch porn and do my best in my own bathroom where I'm using this lotion and stuff, rather because I still didn't have any lead generation tools. I didn't know what to do. Dating apps weren't working, and so yeah, my identity when I was living with a girl that I was barely attracted to, and I was honestly tired of having sex with her, I was like, I can barely even get hard at this point. My identity back then was a guy who kind of just settles and has a girlfriend that he's like not content with, but it's like, oh, it's the best I could do. And that was who I was back then in 2021. Yeah, very different than if you come across my channel these days, right? Now, we fast forward a bit to when I was 22 and things started improving, and I met a girl that I actually was really, really attracted to. And so at that, I remember it got to the breaking point there because I met her on a dating app. We were seeing each other for a handful of months. And then she ended up saying, like, something along the lines of, what are we, where is this going? I feel like a joke because you text me, but then you don't text me for a bunch of days. Right? This is back when I was completely entrenched in the red pill dogma of like, all right, if you want to be a high value man, you must have a rotation of girls, you must be a player, you must do this and that. And so I was eating all that shit up, right? And so I was employing those tactics with this girl where I would just hang out with her and have a great time, but then I wouldn't text her for days because I was worried, oh, I don't want to text her too much and seem too available because then she's going to lose interest. And that was my whole mentality back then. And so my identity at that point was a guy who can't be completely transparent with women because I'm scared that she's not going to like me anymore, or she's going to go find a boyfriend, and so I'm going to be left again in a position where I'm going months at a time without sex and having these long dry spells. And so yeah, that was my identity, right? Is like, well, still don't know what to do, still can't generate leads, still can't go on dates, still trying to do my best on dating apps, still, at least at that point I was going out with my roommate and my friends at the time. We were going out to bars and I was finding all right success hitting on girls that way. I had found a look for myself, and I found a haircut that was working for me. I found a beard length, and I was doing clothes reselling. So I had a little virtual thrift shop going on. So by default, I was getting kind of cooler clothes and finding a style that worked for me. But still, I was in a position where I didn't have the dating life that I wanted. So back then, my identity was the guy that was trying to like portray this player lifestyle. I remember I'd post photos of girls that I had hooked up with, but like, like we were posing in the mirror or something, or like a quick photo at a park, and then I would post that on Instagram and be like, oh, look how cool I am. I would try to come up with some quirky caption or something. That was all to like, I was 22. That's only 3 years ago. I was still in a place in life where I was trying to portray to the world, look at me, I get girls, I'm this player, oh my God, player lifestyle, I get all the girls. But still internally, behind closed doors, my actual belief about myself, my true identity was, yeah, I'm still not where I want to be. I'm still not living the dating life that I want. I still cannot generate leads to save my life, right? The only these photos that I have are girls that I went on a date with through a dating app and started hooking up with, and that's about all I could manage, and that's who I was, right? Now, let's talk about the most monumental identity shift of recent, when I was 23 years old. So now this is about 2.5 years ago at this point. This was March and April of 2023. This is when essentially everything changed for me. Okay. I came across Christian Casanova's channel. I thought to myself, I cannot believe that there are people in this world that are this bold, that are able to generate dates this consistently and this effectively. I cannot believe that there are people that are willing to just walk over to the hottest girl that they see and just say, hey, you look great. Do you want to go on a date? Like, it was just so out of the realm of possibility for myself. And I was dumbfounded when I came across that content. And I remember binge watching videos on his channel. And then eventually, right, a couple hours after binge watching his videos, I just sent the guy an email, paid him to work with me in Poland. So I flew out to Poland. And this is where my entire life and my entire identity up until this point was just shattered. So I just went over how I started out 12, 13 years old. I was the loser who had no friends. Then all of a sudden I started getting friends. So I was the cool guy who had friends but didn't get any girls. And then late high school, I finally was able to find some success, get a girlfriend. Then after high school, it was just this dark period of like 3 years where I was just, oh my God, barely had any dating activity. This sucks. Yeah. And so my identity is shifting a little by little over time. And then had the girl move in with me, had a couple of flings after that. And then we get to 2023. I meet up with Christian and do my first ever approach. And I remember just telling him, this was great. I think I've never phrased it this way, but I think what was so compelling about Christian's coaching is that even virtually, when I was watching his videos and watching him coach other guys, I could see that I didn't have to put up a front around Christian. So up until that point, all of the friends that I had met and accumulated, and even family members up until that point, I was worried about showing my true colors and how I actually viewed myself in my dating life, because I was scared of ridicule. And I was so worried that there was just no safe zone for me to actually express who I really was and what I really thought about myself. And so that's what caused the shell, right? That's what created the ego of like, no, I do get the girls, blah, blah, blah. And I would never admit that I didn't back then. But when I met up with Christian in Poland, and I met somebody that was just so genuine and actually did what he talked about rather than just talking about it. My friends up until that point, they would tell me how easy it was to get girls, and I got so many girls, it's so easy. Ephraim, what are you talking about? But they would never actually show me or help me. They would just talk about it and say, oh, well, you're struggling, that sucks, you must not have the sauce, right? But I finally met somebody, even family members, right? They weren't as targeted or attacking, but still they offered no guidance. And then I come across Christian and I meet somebody who showed his life transparently from back when he was 23 and was in more or less the same position that I was when I was 23, and showed his progression over the 2 years. By that point when I met him in Poland, he was 25, and just showed his progression over time. And I just remember feeling so psychologically safe when I finally met up with him. And I was like, this is a person where I could just be real with. I could actually tell him what I truly think about myself, my actual fears regarding approach, right? My actual fears, my hindrances regarding, walking over to the girl. And so that's what we did, right? Day one, we met up in that coffee shop, and I just remember telling him the truth. And I was like, yeah, I've been putting on this facade my whole life. I've been trying to get to a dating life that I actually want, but I don't have that life. And instead, I just try to portray on the internet that I have that life. And in reality, who am I really? Well, I'm actually just a guy who's super scared of anything like this. I'm a guy who's so scared of ever walking over to a girl in this manner. I'm scared that she's not going to like me. I'm scared that she's too pretty for me. I'm scared that I'm not good enough for her. I'm scared that she's going to be so offended that that little old Ephraim is walking over to her, that she's going to start screaming or yelling or pepper spray me, or people are going to come intervene and say, what is this guy doing here in our country trying to hit on our women? And all of these fears I was able to surface with Christian and tell him, like, no, this is my actual identity. I'm a guy who's dissatisfied with my dating life right now. And I just feel stuck and trapped because I don't know where to go. And the dating apps aren't working. And the red pill content that I'm binging isn't working. And I'm trying to go out at nightclubs, and I'm reading the Mystery Method and all the related books and trying to implement these strategies. And that's not doing anything for me. And I kind of feel odd doing all this shit. I just want a tried and true method to actually generate leads for myself. And that's when I was 23. And I could not have possibly seen how that would translate into the rest of my life. And now we fast forward to where I am now at 25. I couldn't have possibly seen just how life altering that experience would be for me in my immersion with Christian in Poland. I couldn't have known, right? But what I remember is going through it day after day, going up to girls and getting coached as I went. And, oh, Ephraim, you should try this. You should stand this way. You should get in front of her this way. You should try to project your voice more. You should not be looking around a bunch while you're talking to her. And all of these little incremental tweaks that we made over those 30 days when I was in Warsaw with him, I came out of that experience realizing that identity is so malleable that it's actually crazy. I thought that because I was who I was up until that point, I was kind of trapped in this identity of, like, I'm faking it on the internet. I'm trying to portray this player lifestyle, but I'm never actually going to achieve what I'm after, which is a fun, sporadic, unpredictable dating life. And then within such a short period of time, right? The first 3-4 days in Poland, I already had a bunch of dates lined up, especially once we got to day 30. It was like I had so many dates that I'd already been on, and I was still lining up dates on the last day that I was there. And it's like, it was just so monumental of an experience that I realized, wait, I just changed my entire identity. No longer am I the guy that's dissatisfied with my dating life. No longer am I the guy who thinks that I can't make things happen with girls, because I had proven to myself that was not the case anymore. And it was funny because even a few months after our immersion, it took me a while to, like, accept that my identity had changed. And I was like, it's like my experience came before my identity even changed in my own mind, where I was almost surprised that I was getting such good results. I was almost surprised that his coaching was just so effective and so life-changing, that I got back to San Francisco, and I was still shooting my shot, still lining up dates, still having amazing experiences. And then a few months later, I kind of look back at this body of work of all the reps that I'd put in and all the changes that happened to my personality, to my boldness, to my confidence. And I look back and I went, wait, I'm a different person now, right? People are treating me differently now. My friends are starting to catch on to, right? They're starting to see girls coming around. They're starting to see me show up to different bonfires and barbecues with girls. Now they're starting to see I'm not home as much, or now there's a girl in my bedroom, the door's closed. And it's like, all of a sudden they started treating me as like, oh, that's Ephraim. Yeah, that's just the guy that gets the girls. Yeah. Whereas, like, a couple of months prior, I was just the guy that didn't. Yeah. And now all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that's Ephraim. He's just the guy that flirts all the time with girls. Yeah, that's Ephraim. He's just the guy who aggressively shoots his shot without worrying about who's around and who's watching. Right? My dad starts to see me approaching while we're together, and now he's all of a sudden he's like, oh yeah, that's just Ephraim. That's just my son. Yeah, if there's a cute girl around, he's probably going to be talking to her. That just became who I was. And it was honestly just such a crazy shift that happened. And so the reason why I'm going over my own story and how this all ties into how you can make the same changes is that I just realized in that moment, over those few months following the immersion, that identity is not static. Just because there are some people in this world who are so committed to their sense of identity because that's just all they know up until this point in their life, does not mean that you have to also be that same way. So if you're a guy who up until this point has not had success with girls, that doesn't mean that that's going to be the case forever. In fact, you can decide as early as right now that that simply is no longer the case and that you're changing that. All right. And a lot of you that are in the community that are watching the live streams and active, you are actively changing that as we speak. You're actively going out and you're giving yourself a chance and you're trying to change your life. You're trying to spin your dating life around to somewhere that you're actually satisfied. And you're not just accepting who you've been up until this point and going and just shrugging and going, oh, I guess this is me. This is who I was meant to be. I guess I'm just not genetically gifted enough. Oh, I guess I'm just not tall enough. Oh, I guess I'm just not handsome enough. I guess I'm just not strong enough, rich enough, right? All of these excuses that people say, it's like, it's none of it is true. I am a living, breathing example, in fact, that that's not the case, that you can change your identity. Yeah, you can change who you think you are and what you actually believe about yourself. Now, the next bullet point I wrote down is that you can decide to change it, but having evidence that supports your new identity is going to help you actually believe it, right? So it's one thing just watching this live stream, getting super inspired and going, all right, I'm changing my identity. Now, let's say your name is John. You're like, all right, I'm John. I get girls now, right? And that's your new identity that you're putting out into the world. Well, it's one thing to just say that, but when you actually start lining up dates for yourself, when you actually get experiences under your belt with different girls and different cultures and different countries and different environments, then the identity almost starts to change itself. It's like you don't even have to actively be doing anything. You just turn around and look at your last few months and go, wow. It's like up until that point, I had no activity. These last few months, I've just had a bunch of dates and a bunch of experiences. And now it's like you actually believe what you're saying. Yeah. So that's why I say somebody can try to challenge me, right? Somebody, a random commenter can comment right now and say, from you get no girls. I don't believe anything that you're saying. You're a fraud. All of your videos are fake. You probably hire actresses in all of your infields, all of your date breakdowns. You probably find random actresses and tell them, all right, send me a voice note, please. All right, send me these texts in this sequence at this time, right? Somebody can claim all of that shit in the comment section. And I would just look at it and laugh. I would just go, that's funny. That sucks that guy thinks that, but it is what it is, right? It doesn't affect me. It doesn't change my experience. It doesn't change all these dates that I've been on. It doesn't change what I actually believe about myself. But that's because the evidence is it supports my self-belief now, right? The evidence, what I've been able to accomplish up until this point in regards to dating, it supports what I believe about myself these days, which is, yeah, I'm just a guy that can get the girls now. Yeah, I'm just a guy that can go shoot his shot, attempt, stand in front of the girl confidently, ask for her number. Yeah, set up a date with her, go on a date, have a great time. And that's just who I am these days. That's just who I've built myself into. And so the evidence supports that, right? And so that's why it's so easy for me to brush off people that try to challenge that, right? Or people that try to joke about it. Now, if you pan over, hold on. Now, let's say we panned over to a creator that makes a lot of similar claims, but doesn't have any evidence to support it, right? But hasn't actually been on the dates. They're just like spewing stuff into the internet about this is how you have to get the girls. And firstly, oftentimes we can sniff those guys out because the advice that they give a lot of the times just isn't even applicable or isn't effective at all. But then another way to sniff it out is when one of those creators gets challenged on their channel, for example. Yeah, if a guy says, hey dude, I actually don't believe what you're saying, like, do you have any proof or evidence? Or, hey dude, I actually don't believe you, like this all sounds like fluff. That guy is likely to get very defensive and insecure and go, oh, you don't know what you're talking about, dude. I get all the girls. Oh, you don't even know, dude. I get way more girls than you. Oh my god, you don't even know the half of it, right? He gets real defensive. And then you pan over to a channel like me, a channel like Christian Joseph. If we get a similar comment in one of our videos, we just laugh at it. We just go, this guy genuinely just doesn't know what he's talking about, and he doesn't even know what he's missing out on by claiming that this is all fake and fabricated, right? So anyways, yeah, let's continue. So The last bullet point I wrote down here is ego. So ego ties directly into what we, yeah, exactly. Mo's talking about some of the creators that are probably like that. I haven't seen those guys that you're referring to. I've seen a little bit of John Anthony lifestyle. And that was something I was just kind of like laughing about when I watched his videos, because I, I don't know if he's still doing the same stuff, but I just remember like the first video I clicked on, within like the first 10 seconds, all he was doing was gloating about his lay count, right? He was like, oh, see, here's my lay count and it goes up all the time. And this is proof that I'm the best and nobody else knows what they're talking about. And he was just shitting on everybody else. And that was funny. But, who knows whether or not the content of what these guys are talking about is accurate. Actually, I don't even care if it is. I'm my own person and this is my own channel, so that I'm just going to share things from my perspective without trying to tear anybody else down, right? So this is just my evidence, my perspective, my thought process, and how I got to my dating life, right? I'm not, who knows, maybe you watch another creator and their content is just as valuable, but the people that resonate with me, with my personality, with my style of teaching, are just simply going to watch my content, and that's just how it goes, right? All right. So anyways, yeah, the last bullet point I wrote down here is how ego tries to defend your identity when somebody challenges it. So yeah, we already touched on this, but yeah, I see that all the time, right? When somebody challenges the beliefs that you have about yourself, that's when the ego kind of engages, and that's when you're more likely to get really defensive and fight back. And no, I do get the girls. No, this and that, right? Versus nowadays, if somebody, not just on the channel, but if I'm out and about at a bar, let's say, and for whatever reason, somebody was to come up to me and start insulting me, right? And go, oh, Ephraim, you have a funny haircut. I bet you get no girls, right? I just laugh at the guy. I just be like, that is hilarious, man. Like, whatever. I don't care. So anyways, could you please step aside so I can go and approach her over there, right? Like, that's how I'd react to that. So anyways, let's see. One of the guys says, is he just going to fiddle with his nose? Yes. Yes. Ephraim, my identity is I have fucking severe allergies. So yes, rather than using that as an excuse to not live stream, I'm just simply going to fiddle with my nose on camera for you boys and deliver value as I can. Okay. So yeah, I understand maybe it doesn't look the most professional or the most appealing that I'm fucking blowing my nose on camera, but I mean, who really cares, dude? Who cares? So yeah, anyways, boys, that's what I wanted to talk about today, is how identity is not something that's static and permanent. How you don't have to just align yourself with who you've been up until this point and just shrug your shoulders and say, well, it's that's just too bad. It's too bad that I wasn't bestowed with game from birth. It's too bad that I grew up as the guy who didn't get the girls. And I just try to use myself as an example of what I'm talking about to show you, right? Not just tell you, literally show you, right? I show you photos of how I used to look. I show you clips of myself in the past and how funny looking I was and how funny behaving I was. And then I show you proof and examples of myself in the current day. I show you recent examples of me walking over to girls nowadays and date breakdowns and just how my thought process has changed over the years and how that has led to a better dating life for myself these days. Yeah. And it all has to do with this topic that we just talked about. Yeah. How I simply didn't accept that was going to be my identity forever. Instead, I changed it. I actively changed it so effectively that I didn't even realize I changed it, right? A couple of months after my immersion, I look back, still kind of feeling like the guy who didn't get the girls. I was just like, okay, now I have a few experiences in Poland. Now I've had a few dates here in San Francisco. I mean, does that change much? And then I look back and I go, yeah, yeah, it does. It actually changes a whole lot. It doesn't change my past. It doesn't change who I was in the past, but it definitely changes who I am today and who I will be moving forward. No longer do I see myself as a guy who simply can't make it happen with girls. Now I see myself as the exact opposite. Yeah, now I see myself as the guy who can make it happen. And taking it a step further, now I see myself as the guy who can teach it, right? I'm not even satisfied with just having a sick dating life and just living it. Now I want to document it and teach it so that I can share these experiences with other guys. Yeah, I want I want other guys to be able to live this lifestyle if that's what they're after also. Yeah. And it's like, I just want to spread it. I want other people to be satisfied because I just hated living the life that I was living when I wasn't satisfied with my dating life. I just hated it. It detracted from every other area of my life. Yeah, I was less social. I was less excited about waking up. I was less excited about going to work and progressing in a career. I was like, there was something that was just so massive that was missing. And now that I've got it taken care of, it's like I've seen how it can improve my life as a whole. And so I just want to share it with other people. And so, anyways, if you want more tailored, personalized advice, apply to join the free school community. I've got a paid school community on the way that I'm kind of architecting right now to make it as valuable as possible. And then I'll have a proper one-to-one coaching offer where we'll be in person. It'll be just me and you. Not going to be a group coaching offer. You're going to get my undivided attention, and we're going to have you mic'd up so that we can listen into your conversations, and I can give you feedback in real time, and we can take you from 0 to 1 with your dating life as well. All right. That's coming soon. So stay tuned. Ricardo says, hi, Ephraim, are there degrees to getting rejected by women? Yeah, that's an interesting question. I'd just say, baseline would be the girl's not interested. That's just, all right, you're getting rejected. But I would say there's degrees in that if it's like a very brutal, like she's insulting you, that's something that's never happened to me, right? Where the girl's insulting me rather than just saying she's not interested. If she's saying like, you're a piece of shit, or you should stop doing this, or girls don't like this, or this would be really bad, right? If another guy is coming over and saying to the girl, is this okay? Are you okay right now? Is this guy bothering you? None of that has ever happened to me. But I would say that that's like a very severe level of rejection. And that's something that you should actually like take a step back from approach and just start to audit yourself, start to audit like your own mannerisms and how you're coming across to other people, because that would suggest that you're doing a lot of things really wrong, right? That would suggest that you're giving off very creepy vibes. That would suggest that you're probably like not able to make eye contact, or you're kind of that would just suggest that your approach overall is really bad. And so I'd say if you're getting really severe reactions that are like negative, then that's a telltale sign that you should take a step back and just audit your life and your personality. And not to say you're never going to find success here. That just means that you have a lot more to work on than you probably thought. And that's, that would be a guy that like came across this content after being a Minecraft incel who just stayed in his apartment and then came across this content and decided, all right, I'm just going to go try to cold approach. Well, it's like that guy's probably still missing a lot of intangibles that would lead to success with this skill. So yeah, that's my answer there. And then Mo says, would you say most rejections are the approach? Would you say that most rejections are the fault of the guy who's approaching? Honestly, man, I would even reframe that entire question, because I don't see a rejection, honestly, as a fault at all. Because you can kind of flip that around and say, would you say that every time you get a number and go out on a date, would you say that that's the guy's fault or the girl's fault? And it's like, I don't think it's a fault. I just think it's life. I just think it's the girl is responding to her context about you and also her context about her own life. And if it doesn't align with what you're offering her, then it makes sense that she would not be interested. So it's not like you just made a big error and it's like your fault. It's more so that girl is not interested in you. And some girls will be and some girls won't be. And that's just life, right? So a lot of this skill set is just accepting that simple fact. Not every girl is going to be into you. So the rejections are expected. It's not, that kind of suggests that rejection is something you should try to mitigate. And I take the opposite approach. I think rejection is something you should run towards, because you filter through enough rejections and inevitably you are going to find a girl that just likes you. And some guys, it's going to take more girls than others to find that girl, right? Some guys are going to have to do a bunch more approaches, and there's a million variables why. Yeah, there's just a million. It's because of you and your personality and how solid your approach is, and whether or not you actually believe what you're saying, and whether or not you have experience, and all of this, right? All of that's going to play into it. So yeah, I wouldn't say that a rejection is anybody's fault. I think it just is. Rejection just is. The date just is, right? And it's like, it's not your fault. It's not anybody's fault. And it's not something that's bad. It just means that girl's not interested. So let's find the next one. Yeah, let's find the one that is. Yeah. All right, boys. That being said, I got a date lined up. That's fun. Yeah, the most recent filming session I did in the Mission District. Um, one of the girls that I approached, that you'll get that breakdown soon. I've got actually another video dropping tomorrow with approaches from May, and then after that, I got another video after that with the girl that I approached, the Brazilian girl that was a tourist, and then after that, I'll put together the more recent infield footage that I got with the spy glasses, which includes the girl that I'm going on a date with today. So that should be fun. I'm meeting up with her in the Mission District. Yeah, I said on Sunday or Saturday, whichever day it was, I was like, I'm not even sure if I'm going to go on this date. And now here we are Thursday, and I'm like, yeah, we could do that. Yeah, that sounds fun. She was pretty banging, so should be a good time. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But anyways. Yeah, he says Ephraim gets me pumped up when he starts going in flow mode. Yeah, I know. I just you could tell my the way that I'm speaking just changes entirely, and I start going, it's nobody's fault. What do you mean? Reframe. That's funny. I could tell that tells you that I believe in what I'm talking about. I believe in this movement, and most importantly, I believe in you boys, because you and I are no different. We might look completely different, but we are no different when it actually comes down to the bottom line. I'm a guy, you're a guy. I want dates, you want dates. I used to suck with girls. You maybe used to or currently suck with girls, and that's just it is what it is. I'm just a big brother trying to guide you through this. Yeah. Trying to make it as painless as possible. There's going to be pain involved anyways. There's going to be rejection involved anyways. But at least I can kind of give you a blueprint of what to expect. I can give you a map. Yeah. I can give you a map. And that makes the journey a lot easier when you actually know where you're going and you have a direction. Yeah. You have actionable advice that you can follow and implement versus just trying to walk your way through the darkness and figure it out as you go, right? That's more or less what I had to do before I met Christian. And then I met Christian and he gave me a map. There we go. So anyways, boys, I hope you enjoyed the live stream. I hope this was educational. All right. Please continue. Those of you who are active in the Skool community, continue to document your experience. Just treat that as a fucking vlog. Literally, just treat that community as somewhere that you just post your thoughts and your experiences and your audio infields and your video clips and your photos of what you're doing and how it, obviously make sure it relates to dating and what we're talking about, or just like improving your life overall, but specifically dating, cold approach. Continue to document your journey in that group. That group is for you. All right. I provide my feedback high level, kind of like an overseer who manages it and makes sure nobody's insulting each other. But that group is for you boys. All right. So continue to lean on it, leverage it, utilize it. All right. I appreciate you boys as always. Thank you to those of you who commented, left your thoughts, asked your questions, and we'll make another one of these very soon. All right. As always, go in for your approaches because life is too short.